And I just wanted to thank both of you for coming out tonight. My name is Rashard Snellings. I am with the South Fulton Coalition. The South Fulton Coalition, we're based in South Atlanta, and specifically in the city of South Fulton. Now, the mission of the South Fulton Coalition is to implement action programs for the continued improvement and accountability and integrity of the city of South Fulton government and its elected officials. And I just wanted to thank you both so much for coming out tonight. The way we're going to conduct this is going to be a virtual town hall session. We are going to allow 3 minutes for opening remarks. After that, we are going to turn it over to the residents who have joined the call to see if they have any questions. I may start the first question off unless we have members of the public that have questions. Now, as a reminder to the public, if you have questions, please use the reactions option to raise your hand and I will acknowledge you. With that being said, can we just do a check-in with all of our candidates? I see you, Mr. Bailey. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, sir.
Awesome. All right. And then I see Dr. Jason Hayes. Can you hear me?
Yes. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you for joining.
Good.
And then we have
Absolutely.
State Representative Shannon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. And now, are there any additional candidates that have joined the call that I did not call on? I see we have State Representative Derek Jackson. Can you hear me, sir?
Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine. Thank you for joining.
You're welcome.
All right, now, are there any additional candidates that I did not call on? All right, doesn't look like I have anybody else. So again, I would like to welcome all the candidates to the call. And I will start with you, Dr. Hayes. You have 3 minutes for your opener. You have 3 minutes for your opening remarks. You may begin. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for allowing me to come to speak with you, South Fulton Coalition. My name is Dr. Jason Hayes, Democratic candidate for Lieutenant Governor right here in the great state of Georgia. Just want to let you know I'm a physician, small business owner, and philanthropist. Originally from Louisiana, medical doctor. Also have a master's in public health. I have worked as a congressional intern. Also, I have a physician's executive MBA, and also I'm a small business owner. I am someone who was run for office before, ran for state rep in House District 49, attained 47.2% of the vote as a first-time candidate, showed that I was well-liked by Democrats, but also respected by Republicans. So the question I get is, why not rerun again for that position? You'll probably win it. What I tell people is that my concern is not Alpharetta. Alpharetta will be fine. They have doctors, CEOs, millionaires. My concern is all of Georgia. My concerns are Atlanta, especially pockets of Atlanta and East Point, College Park, Albany, Columbus. We are dealing with maternal mortality. We're ranked second worst at the bottom of the barrel here in the United States. We're ranked 43rd in healthcare. So naturally, as a doctor, I'm going to push for not only Medicaid expansion, but making sure we get doctors to underserved communities. 2, education is huge. If it wasn't for education, I wouldn't be here. Also, my grandparents are educators. I want to make sure that young people have opportunities outside of college, including bringing back trade skill opportunities and learning about finance. 3, we got to make sure that economic growth is critical, it's important, especially in communities like East Point and College Parks. We must focus on small business ownership and bring a Georgia level small business association. And then 4, all of us as candidates should be talking about voter access and voter protections. My campaign has just partnered up with an organization called Ride Share to Vote. And if you need a ride to the poll, you can contact them at www.rideshare2vote.com. I'm excited to speak with you. Thank you for an opportunity at this platform. And again, it's Dr. Jason Hayes. Learn about me at www.jasonhayes.com and also text Dr. Jason Hayes to 90678. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Now,
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, at this time, I would like to turn it over to Charlie Bailey. You have the floor. Please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snellings, and thank you to the South Fulton Coalition for having us today. My name is Charlie Bailey, and I'm running to be your next Lieutenant Governor. I'm running for lieutenant governor because every day the vast majority of Georgians, they get up and they go to work and they're worried about, is my kid safe? How are they doing in school? If I get a hospital bill, can I pay it? And instead of working on those issues that are closest to the hearts and lives of the people of Georgia, our main two Republican opponents in this race are in a competition over who can be the biggest authoritarian. You got one of them, Burt Jones, who was a false elector for Donald Trump, tried to overturn the election. You got another, Butch Miller, who recently brought Marjorie Taylor Greene to the floor of the state Senate as a representation of the politics he believes in, which I submit to you is a politics of hate and division. One that says not everybody's vote does matter the same. Not everybody's child matters the same. Not everybody's community matters the same. Well, I'll tell you what I believe. I believe that we all love our families, that we all deserve the same respect, the same dignity, the same safety, the same justice, the same opportunity to leave for our kids a better life than the one that we had. And it's those values that have driven my career, whether that was as an attorney under Governor Roy Barnes and his law office, Barnes Law Group, whether that was as a senior assistant district attorney in Fulton County, working on organized crime, whether that was as the Democratic nominee for Attorney General 4 years ago, a race in which I got 49% of the vote, the highest vote share of any down ballot statewide Democrat, or back in private practice now in the firm founded by Bobby Lee Cook, a man that represented labor unions in the 50s before anyone in this state would. It's those values that have driven my career, and they're going to drive the agenda, which is going to be expanding Medicaid to cover over 600,000 Georgians that don't have health care coverage, raising teacher pay. I think we should be paying our teachers $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year, and we need to reduce class sizes by hiring a lot more teachers. I want to make technical school tuition free again in the state of Georgia, one of the many things the Republicans have taken away. I ask you to stand with me in this election. I look forward to earning your support. I'm proud to have the endorsements of Congressman Hank Johnson, Congresswoman Lucy McBath, former Atlanta Mayor Shirley Franklin, Governor Roy Barnes. And if you stand with me in this election, I promise you this, you'll never have to apologize. And you'll always know my friend Charlie, he fights for us. Thank y'all very much.
All right, thank you so much for that introduction. Next, I would like to call on State Representative Derek Jackson. You have the floor.
Thank you to South Fulton Coalition for having us. I am Derek Jackson. I'm your state representative, represent District 64. Listen, I'm a husband. My wife and I, we have 7 amazing children, 1 grandson. Why am I starting there? Because my candidacy for lieutenant governor is focusing on family. In the last 26 days, I traveled over 5,500 miles across Georgia just to meet families where they are, to hear their concerns. And some of the things that I learned was very simple. They want affordable health care, quality health care. They want affordable housing. They want a livable wage. They want a public education that's not based on the proximity to Atlanta. And when you think about these things that these families, these working families that's been asking of us, they simply just saying they want their government to show up. They want their government to show up. And that makes sense to me. I'm a retired naval officer after 22 years in the United States Navy, 10 years in corporate America, and 6 years under the Gold Dome. When you think about your lieutenant governor candidate, you got to think about 3 things: legislative experience. Out of the 9 candidates that are running for lieutenant governor, only 2 of us actually serve with Stacey. Others love to talk about Stacey Abrams, but only 2 of us. Why is that important? Because since the history of the lieutenant governor, since 1945, when this office was created and it was filled in 1947, all 12 lieutenant governors either came out of the House or the Senate. So I trust Georgia voters that's going to make the right decision. When you think about the 9 candidates, only 3 of us been elected under the Gold Dome. Nothing against the other candidates, but experience matters. I know there are some of my opponents, they hate that, but it's true. Because if any of us had to walk into a hospital, we want an experienced doctor to give us our prognosis and to help us get through that situation. We want an experienced lawyer to help us get through that situation. Whatever that occupation is, we want someone that's experienced. Number two, we want somebody that have a compassionate heart. Listen, I lost my dear mother 2013. And for 31 years, she was a nurse. She taught me and my 3 siblings what it means to serve with a compassionate heart, to meet
Yeah,
family.
15 seconds remaining.
And then last but not least is this. The third thing is capability and capacity. You want a leader to have the capability and capacity to get things done. Georgians are exhausted of back and forth politics. I'm your candidate for Lieutenant Governor, and you can go to DerekJackson.com, DerekJackson.org to learn more about my candidacy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I'd like to turn it over to State Rep Renita Shannon. You have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, South Fulton Coalition, for having us tonight. My mom actually lives in South Fulton, so I'm excited to be here with you. I'm State Representative Renita Shannon. I represent House District 84, which is in DeKalb County, and I've been serving in the Georgia House of Representatives for the last 6 years. Before I was an elected official, I was a successful business executive and a community organizer, organizing on the issues that matter to working families. I was raised by 2 hardworking parents. My mom also was a nurse, and my dad was a pastor and a community organizer long before they had a word for what he was doing. He was always going to community meetings, organizing with the NAACP, SCLC, and he just really made that a part of his life's work. My parents always taught my sister and I that it was both worthwhile and important to fight on issues that matter for working families. I always admired my dad's experience growing up, fighting for the community and doing the work that he was doing, but I never quite understood why that work was so important until I was about 12 years old. And that was when I witnessed the brutal beating of a Black man by the name of Rodney King by 5 white police officers. And then I watched the courts acquit those police officers. It was in that moment that I fully understood why we have to fight for justice. And I also understood that justice doesn't come to all communities equally, and it's something that we have to be invested in. And so wanting to see equal justice on the issues was one of the reasons that I decided to run for State House. I ran for State House, was sworn in 2017, and this is what I've done in the 6 years that I've been there. I fought for workers to be paid a livable wage, because workers are the majority, and it's long past time that policy in the state of Georgia actually reflected that. I have fought to protect voting rights. Since 2017, I've served on the Governmental Affairs Committee, which deals with election law, and I'm the only person in this race that can say that they've had the direct experience of having stood up to the Trump lawyers in order to protect voting rights. The Trump lawyers came before my committee in 2020, and they were trying to get us to throw out all of Georgians' votes and give the state to Trump, and I stood up to them. I have also worked to end mass incarceration. We are having folks be placed on probation and sometimes end up in jail over the simple inability to pay a speeding ticket. Mass incarceration doesn't make any of us safer. In fact, it drives more crime. Last but not least, I have fought to expand access to healthcare because we know that access to healthcare is life-saving. I led the successful effort to expand postpartum Medicaid in the state, and I'm the only person in this race that has gotten Georgia to be able to do that. So in 2019, I began working with the Republican budget chair to really make the point that we needed to do something about Black women that were dying in maternal mortality in this state. And so through those efforts, we were able to expand postpartum Medicaid from 60 days up to now a year. Now I'm running for Lieutenant Governor because regressive policies have shaped a harsh reality for far too many Georgians, particularly working Georgians. We need a lieutenant.
15 seconds remaining.
I'm sorry. Okay. We need a lieutenant governor who's going to fight for our collective future. That person is me. I'm Renita Shannon. I'm running for lieutenant governor.
Thank you so much. And then I see that we have Dr. Malik that just joined. Dr. Malik, if you can unmute yourself, you have 3 minutes for opening remarks. You may begin. Thank you.
Oh, good afternoon and evening, everybody. Thanks for having us. It is good to be here. I came to America in 1979 with a small suitcase where I can put maybe 3 weeks belongings with $1,200. I understand the value of hard work and good health. Those are the 2 things which put me through my undergrad, my master, and my PhD. I wrote a book on Chinese entrepreneurship and economic development of China. I understand the issues of economic development. I strongly believe on economic development because if we have the opportunities for everybody, we can offer healthcare, education, security, housing, environment, whatever we need as a human being. Life is an amalgamation of various issues, but to manage it as a candidate or as a platform, we narrow it down to few. But we should understand life is very complex. And in this complexity, I would like to invite all of us to understand the meaning and significance of having a law passed by US Congress and also Georgia Congress vis-a-vis reparations. We as a nation have to recognize the suffering of the oppressed people. And mostly they were African Americans who were oppressed for about 400 years, and still it is going on. So as a law, we yes, they suffer fish, not to give fish. So through reparation, we should have a program where people who suffered along with the rest of the population should have education facilities for them available 24 hours through education server. And then we offer them healthcare. Put together with preventive measure vis-a-vis healthcare, we'll have a very nice and healthy society. Reparation will help us to recognize that we have done mistake as a nation and we are recognizing it and we are ready to compensate. And how do we compensate? We give education to everybody on demand, and we also provide healthcare. Because if we have these two, my life is based on education and healthcare. I take good care of me. If you look into my medical record, I had an incident, but after that, I became more health conscious. I eat good food, I do good exercise. Hardly I go to the doctor. In the last 5 years, you might say, I might have gone 5 times plus minus to the doctor.
Yeah, 15
and this
seconds
gives me the
remaining.
idea to bring forth two policies strongly, education and healthcare for everybody. If we can provide these two, individuals can move on their own. Thank you very much. God bless America.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We had another candidate, Eric Allen, that was supposed to be here. He sent me a message that he asked me to read to everyone. And it says, due to recent events, I will be joining in several protests to protect bodily autonomy for my wife, daughter, and women across America. I mean, no disrespect by not attending tonight's forum, but the moment calls for action tonight and not campaigning. So that was the message that he sent to me. Now, are there any additional candidates that have joined that I may have missed? All right, well, thank you for everyone that's here today. Now, as a reminder to the audience, if you have any questions, please use the reactions option and raise your hand, and I will acknowledge you once I see your hand raised. Since I don't see the hand raised, I'll just ask the first question. Now, this question is going to be for all of the candidates, and we'll start with you, Ms. Shannon, State Representative Shannon. We learned that one of our hospitals in East Point is going to be converting itself over to an urgent care facility. What should the residents know about the certificate of need program that's required by the state?
Sure. So one of the reasons that I have fiercely protected the certificate of need program is because what it basically does is work to ensure that our community hospitals will stay vibrant and that they will stay strong. I've served on the Governmental Affairs Committee, which deals with election law, but it also deals with government processes. And I've also served on the Insurance Committee, which we saw the certificate of need fights come through that committee. And so the certificate of need program basically just makes sure that folks are not putting up standalone healthcare centers that will take away from the business that the larger hospitals handle. And so what you saw with the recent closing of that center is something that I actually did look into it because I was surprised to see it close as well. Wellstar bought it last year, but that hospital was not getting a lot of foot traffic. And I do know that because I actually have a friend who is a physician or was a physician at that hospital. Most folks were going to Grady. And one of the reasons I think they were going to Grady is because the state does give Grady a lot of money because they do a lot of indigent care. And so Grady was getting a lot of the resources, and they do have the skill and the talent to be able to do it. So they couldn't justify keeping that hospital open. But I do think that it's important that we keep a strong certificate of need program. We don't want to end up with like other states where they have all these offshoot health centers and no place for folks who cannot afford to pay for healthcare. And that's what we say when we talk about indigent. So you're thinking about the unhoused folks who might have an accident but don't have health insurance. The community hospitals are the ones that take care of those folks. And we have to keep those hospitals strong. And a lot of times when you don't have a limitation on how many of these individual healthcare centers that can just pop up anywhere, what you tend to see is it takes away so much business from the large community hospitals, and then they don't take indigent care patients. And so that really is an issue.
Thank you so much. Now, Charlie, Mr. Bailey, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nellens, for the question. I agree. We've got to keep a strong certificate of need program because we have to make sure that indigent care is covered across the state. But I would say that this argument that sometimes the major hospitals, get in with, it's about scarcity. And if we expanded Medicaid, we could deal with this more easily. I mean, you've had 8 rural hospitals close over the last 10 years, basically for lack of funding. If we expanded Medicaid, those kinds of hospitals would be able to stay open, and we could serve the populations in those places, those with healthcare. Because when you're expanding Medicaid and you're covering the over 600,000 Georgians that don't have it, you're going to have less of the indigent care. So it'll balance it out better, and you don't have as much of a load on a Grady, and it is spread out. So I agree, we've got to keep the certificate of need program strong. But the main thing our healthcare system needs is an infusion of money that, by the way, we're already paying for. We're paying for folks for Medicaid expansion. We're just paying for our brothers and sisters in Ohio and Indiana and New York and California to have it, but our people here don't have it. So, if we do that, priority number one, expand Medicaid, get that health care to the people that need it, reopen a lot of these rural hospitals that need to be reopened. And it would be the single biggest economic development engine we could ask for, bringing in tens of millions of dollars into our state's economy.
Thank you so much. Now, State Representative Derek Jackson, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And, listen, I don't want to sound redundant, so I'm going to answer your question in a different way, but the same way. We're leaving nearly $4 billion on the table because we don't expand on Medicaid. And when you think about that, in the totality of the healthcare system in Georgia, which is the reason why we're ranked number 43, and it's even worse for women's health, we're ranked number 47. And so you got to look at the entire healthcare system. The certificate of need is just a very small pittance of this. But when you have hospitals that are closing in rural Georgia, that's a problem. When you have a hospital like Phoebe down in Albany that serves 40 counties, and Phoebe almost have 700 beds, that's a problem. The last 2.5, nearly 3 years dealing with this COVID clearly demonstrated that we have a weakness in our healthcare system. We have a shortage of 28,000 nurses. Over 70 counties do not have an OBGYN. Over 60 counties do not have a pediatrician. And when you look at the totality of our healthcare system, and as fragile as it is, yes, we need to definitely expand and bring those federal dollars back to Georgia, as it was already articulated. But we also need to continue to look at those areas because Georgia has grown. And the census has demonstrated that Georgia is growing. And we need to make sure, regardless wherever you live in 159 counties that our healthcare and the quality of our healthcare is not based on the proximity of Atlanta or a zip code. Everyone that's in Georgia, all 10.8 million Georgians deserve to have healthcare, quality healthcare that's affordable and available to them, regardless if they have a family or they starting off in the need of a family. We need to make sure that we take care of all Georgians as it relates to healthcare in Georgia.
Thank you so much. And for this question, we will turn it over to Dr. Malik. You have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. First, I will say I had an opportunity to attend a program presented by Mrs. Stacey Abrams. She emphasized we are losing billions of dollars because we are not expanding Medicaid efficiently. Again, I'm going to emphasize we need everybody to come together under one umbrella, that is reparation. Reparation will be a charity to all citizens. We have to provide them good education, teach them how to fish. Boogeyman, where the boogeyman, they say that we'll be having short supply of resources and money to run the country or Georgia. They are just using these scaring tactics. Because if we give 24-hour education service to our citizens, they'll be well educated, they will be able to make their own decision, and will be having the skilled and talented labor force in this during this civilization of nanotechnology. So there goes education. With education, it goes hand in hand with healthcare, because they'll be educated enough to know what is good for their body and what is not good for their body. So my proposition is that when, as taxpayers, we pay our money for a common good, we have the right to demand everybody takes care of them through preventive measure. So preventive measure with medical assistance, with universal healthcare and education will save money for us. So we'll have abundance of resources to keep on providing good quality healthcare. Hospitals are must. It is universal treatment place. It is a remedy to overcome emergency situation. So if we value lives, if we value our citizens, we have to offer them education. I'm a prime example of good healthcare and good education. I came with $1,200 in my pocket. When I came to my room at night, the room was dark and cold in Missouri and Kansas. And I kept it cold, I kept it dark. Why? To save money on electricity bill. But I survived. I'm a survivor. I want to teach you how to fish. I'm never gonna give you fish, because you have to learn how to fish for yourself. And education and healthcare will provide you that platform. And I welcome all to support me so we can work hand in hand with our fearless, visionary, and entrepreneurial leader, Ms. Stacey Abrams. And she will make a fine leader for us to follow her and support her. So I'll be also supporting Ms. Stacey Abrams to make Georgia beautiful for everybody. And my dear friends who were oppressed
You have 15 seconds remaining.
we have been oppressed for so many centuries. Give charity to the America, the reparation gift, education and healthcare. Thank you so much. God bless America.
All right, thank you so much. Dr. Hayes, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. So I'm a medical doctor. I'm a practicing physician. I'm a Georgia Medicaid doctor and a Medicare doctor. In addition, not only being a practicing physician, I've also have a master's in public health where I've studied healthcare administration, and I'm a physician executive MBA. To answer your question, the Certificate of Need program, as defined by the Georgia Department of Community Health, is intended to achieve 3 goals. That is to measure and define need, 2, control costs, and 3, to guarantee access to healthcare services. What is pretty unique about this situation is that I'm actually credentialed by all of the major hospital systems in the Atlanta metro, including Wellstar. And actually, Wellstar myself, executives from Wellstar actually gave me exactly the reason why that hospital in Atlanta South is actually closing at this point. are actually being converted to an urgent care. The reason is the occupancy rate, where at any point in time was actually 30 beds out of the 348 beds that the hospital had. And that's about an 8% occupancy rate. Now, when we look at things from a numbers perspective, the hospital was hemorrhaging about $9 million a month. So when we look at business, there's no way that a hospital could have sustained the services. But when we look at the need for people, the hospital actually was providing indigent care, that is patients who actually don't have insurance, and also providing care to Medicaid and Medicare patients. So when you look at hospitals, we have to understand that there's something called a payer mix. And when we look at a payer mix, having private insurances help, the Cignas, the Humanas, Blue Cross Blue Shields, that actually help keep hospitals open. But if majority of your patients are on Medicaid, Medicare, or have no insurance, you're going to have to depend upon something called DISH money, which is basically Medicaid disproportionate share hospital payments, DISH money. That's basically Medicaid payments. So I do agree if we had Medicaid expansion, and actually that would have helped that hospital. But in addition, there is funding that WellStar Atlanta South was not getting, such as from the state and county level, that hospitals like Grady were getting. So that was a concern for WellStar. In addition, one of the other candidates said that it is true. A lot of the patients in that area were foregoing Atlanta South and going to a Piedmont, going to a Grady, not because they wanted to forego it, but because their physicians were at a Piedmont or their physician was at a Northside. So what's unique about this situation is out of all the candidates, I'm the only one that's uniquely qualified to actually, as a lieutenant governor, to actually sit down with the executives, not only with the WellStar, but a Piedmont, a Northside, in Emory, Grady Hospital as well, and actually have discussions with them about what we can do to try to get Atlanta South back open again, or another hospital. The other thing I want people to be aware is that we can't just say healthcare. We have to start looking at economic growth in the community so the economic growth can support the hospital. So if we have some more small businesses, if we have corporations willing to invest in the community so we can have more jobs, people will have health insurance, private insurance.
15 seconds remaining.
And this will be able to help keep whatever hospital that we have there open. But to reiterate what WellStar is saying, they're not abandoning people. There is a 24/7 urgent care. And if someone has a true emergency, they can still call the ambulance and get them transferred to Atlanta main campus.
All right, thank you so much for answering those. Thank you so much for answering those questions for us.
Yes, sir.
Now, just as a reminder to the audience, if you have a question, please use the reactions option and raise your hand, and I will acknowledge you when I see your hand raised. So at this time, please, if you have any questions, we have the candidates here. Please feel free to ask your question. Now, while I wait for additional questions for the audience, we have a direct question that was asked, which is, over the past few years, we've seen Republican legislators repeatedly interfere in the self-governance of cities, from stopping cities from enforcing mask mandates that save lives to interfering with our elections. Now, even Democratic legislators are interfering with our cities, with South Fulton legislators making changes to our charter. What will you do as Lieutenant Governor to protect the sovereignty of our cities? And we will start with Dr. Hayes. You can have that question.
Absolutely, that's a great question. So the first thing I would do is, as Lieutenant Governor, that we can actually commission committees. I would love to have the residents of the South Fultons, in addition to small business owners, and just anyone involved, representatives of the community. I want to hear from all of you in terms of what your needs are. I understand that sometimes cities may want to defect from other cities. Sometimes it could be a benefit, but sometimes it can be at the detriment of the city. So whatever decision that needs to be made, I would actually follow what the community would want. And if it's protect South Fulton, to make sure South Fulton protects its sovereignty, then I'm for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, Dr. Malik, you can have that question.
My position on self-governing or making their own decision for good life, I welcome it because I believe in entrepreneurship. If the citizens as entrepreneurial adventurers comes forward, put forth a good policy that would serve the population they're concerned about, definitely we should support the independent thinking of individual for the betterment of the society. So we have to open up opportunities. Again, I'm not harping on the same thing, but education and healthcare is paramount. When you provide the tools to go fishing, then you don't have to worry about anybody. You don't have to babysit them. If you have good education with talented labor force, that will bring us abundance of wealth and it will increase the wealth of the nation. Same with the healthcare. So let's come together, give opportunities to everybody to guide their life, to make life beautiful for them. If a group of people, they decide, yeah, they would like to govern themselves in certain way, and it is democratic, it is under the Constitution, we'll definitely support them. Thank you.
State Representative Renita Shannon, you have the floor.
Yes, so you're going to hear a lot about governmental affairs because governmental affairs is a committee that deals with most of the hard stuff. And so a part of serving on that committee for the last 6 years since I was sworn into the House of Representatives has been to deal with annexation and incorporation of new cities. I will say this, you're absolutely correct. Republicans have been very hypocritical on advancing the values of self-governments and home rule and things like that. But whenever they get a chance, they do try to control cities. And some of the things that I've fought against in that committee have been things like, for example, last session, we literally had a bill that came through our committee that wanted to tell cities what type of leaf blowers they could use in their city. I mean, it is ridiculous. So I am somebody who does believe that folks are elected at different levels of government for a reason. And I don't believe that the General Assembly should be meddling in what is going on in cities unless they are doing something that is detrimental to the state. So for example, this would be an example where I do think the General Assembly should get involved. When the city of Eagles Landing was about to be created and it was going to basically have to de-annex property from being within a city to create another city, that was a situation where it was going to get the state of Georgia sued by those who had given bond debts to that original city. And so something like that, I do think the state needs to be involved because at the end of the day, all cities are creations of the state. And if these cities fail, that means that the state is on the hook for the debt. So that is the area that to me stands out as to where we should be involved. But no, things like telling cities what type of leaf blowers they should use and whether or not they can have an electric fence or not. And it sounds funny, but these are things that have literally come through the Governmental Affairs Committee, and you will see folks make arguments about that. Those are things that I don't think is appropriate for the General Assembly to be micromanaging cities to that level.
Thank you so much. Mr. Bailey, you can have that question.
Yeah, the way the Republicans, and some of my colleagues have already said this, the way the Republicans act is it depends on which city, it depends on what they're doing. And they pick and choose who they want to force to conduct their business in the way they want to do it. And the Eagles Landing example is a great one, trying to take the Atlanta airport away from the city of Atlanta, trying to create a city in Buckhead, carve it out from the city of Atlanta. And all these are right-wing Republicans trying to come in and force their will upon a locality. I think when you're talking about there's things that are left to the state and there's things that are left to the city. If it's an issue that infringes on others' rights, and you know, Representative Shannon talked about Eagles Landing because that's a bond issue that puts at stake investments that others have, then that comes up against somebody else's rights. When you're talking about leaf blowers, that ain't, that has no impact on some other, county, some other city. So, having a set of rules that we can go by. And if it's good for the goose, then it's good for the gander. If you're going to change it on one city, then let's do it on all. I think we should also maybe explore a lot of this stuff happens, in the cloak of darkness, in a matter of days, and you get these efforts kind of pushed through the General Assembly. I think if there's any local legislation mandating a period of time, and the people that are pushing for it got to go do, let's say, 10 town halls in that city before they can get it passed. If we can mandate some time sometimes that builds public pressure to beat back some of these initiatives.
Thank you so much. State Representative Jackson, you have the floor.
Thank you for the question. And, again, I don't want to sound redundant, so I'll answer your question directly, but in a different way. The Republicans continue to be very subjective. We watched that through gerrymandering of the districts this last legislative cycle. And again, so I don't want to talk about the us versus they or them. We have governing principles for a reason, right? When you think about home rule, it's in place for a reason. Local control for a reason. Why do we have 159 counties in Georgia, 537 cities in Georgia? And that's because the citizens want to control their own destiny. It's impossible for us to say one city should be exactly the same as another city, right? And so you can't say City South Fulton should have the same charter and governing responsibilities like Atlanta. The two are very, very different, even if they're close in proximity. And so you want all levels of government, from federal, state, county, and the municipal, to respect each other's sovereignty, to make sure that the citizens are getting the mandated services that their taxes demand. And then the last thing, I'm trying to make this point clear as well, you got to think about quality of life, right? And so the state government, for example, if I am elected to be your lieutenant governor, I'm not the one that's responsible for trash, for example. But you have some representatives that want to talk about dictating trash. Well, the City South Fulton services for dealing with trash is going to be very different than Albany or Ty, Georgia, or Valdosta. And so that mayor and city council should have and should be empowered, but more importantly, given the resources to make sure that the quality of life for their citizens are met and addressed. And so that's the reason why I truly believe in making sure that the charter, home rule, local control is not used subjectively. It should not be based on the personality of their elected official. It should be governing for the people, because that's why we are all elected. It's for the people. And when we lose sight of that, we start picking winners or losers, us versus they, Black versus white, gay versus straight. And that, as a retired military officer, has no place in our society, because there's only one. If one city fell, we all fail.
Thank you so much. Now, just as a reminder for the audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the reactions option and raise your hand so that I can acknowledge you so you can ask your question. And I'm looking in the chat and I don't see any questions in the chat. So all right, so State Representative Shannon, is there anything that you think that the voters should know that's specific to this election?
Yes. Are these our closing remarks?
No, these are not closing remarks. These are just questions that we have.
So I think that it's important for folks to understand what the job of lieutenant governor actually does, because a lot of folks say that they don't know what lieutenant governor does and they don't understand why they should care about the job. So I'll just take a few minutes to educate everybody on why you should care about this position. The lieutenant governor is second in command. So very similar to how at the federal level, you have a president of the United States and then you have a vice president. Well, the governor of a state is similar to like the president of the state. And the lieutenant governor is similar to the vice president of the state. The lieutenant governor is second in charge. So if anything should happen to the governor, the lieutenant governor will have to step in and take over. The most recent example that we saw of this was in New York when Governor Cuomo resigned and Governor Kathy Hochul's had to step up. So it is important that you do very wisely cast your vote for lieutenant governor. The other thing is that lieutenant governor presides over the Senate. So that person is responsible for running the day-to-day of the Senate. The lieutenant governor also gets to appoint chairs of committees. And that's very important because, as you know, there's obviously, all of us are Democrats that are running, who are on this forum tonight. And we want to see our agenda get passed. We want to see a progressive agenda get passed. We want to see Medicaid fully expanded. We want to see, mass incarceration come to an end. We all have similar sort of priorities. And so it's going to be important that the lieutenant governor is able to put the right person in the right place in order to shepherd legislation. Also, the lieutenant governor gets to make appointments. The lieutenant governor has somewhere over 100 appointments that they get to appoint, which makes, decisions on things like, for example, recently in the last couple of years, the Georgia General Assembly passed a law allowing for the growth of medical cannabis. Well, how do you decide who gets a license to grow that? That is determined by a commission, which lieutenant governor got licenses, got appointments onto that committee. So that is what the job of lieutenant governor does. I think that's what folks need to know.
May I add to my good friend Representative Shannon's perspective too, or was that only addressed to her?
You can go on and answer that as well.
Okay, thank you. I think all Georgians also need to know, since the existence and the establishment of the lieutenant governor office in 1945, and then the first one was seated in 1947, all 12 lieutenant governors came from either the House or the Senate. Now you're probably saying, Representative Jackson, why does that matter? Because the lieutenant governor should have legislative experience. I know some of my colleagues and opponents in this race hate to hear that, but it's true. See, because we deal with anywhere between 900 to 1,200 pieces of legislation in a 40-day period, which spans over 3 months, roughly speaking. And so you have to have legislative experience to make sure you deliver for the people. And so it's one thing for us to have a people's working families agenda, but the lieutenant governor role doesn't come with training wheels. I ask the question all the time. As my wife and I, we're raising 2 medical doctors in our family, to be fully transparent. One graduates from medical school in 2 weeks. But as much as I love my firstborn, she cannot do surgery on me. I want an experienced doctor to do surgery on me. I don't care what occupation there is. You want someone that's experienced at the helm. Now, someone would tell you quickly, well, Donald Trump did not have experience. And I'll ask the question, what did I get us? And so you have to really look at, why is it that the lieutenant governor always came out of the House or the Senate? The other thing that I would like to add, ladies and gentlemen, is this that you need to consider. Out of the 9 of us, only 3 of us serve under the Gold Dome, and only 2 of us actually serve with Stacey Abrams. So a lot of folks going to talk about Stacey Abrams. They're going to use her name. But and the reason why that's important, because relationship matters. You cannot campaign for one political position for 5 years, and then all of a sudden you jump from one race to another, expecting that you're going to get the same results. We cannot have a lieutenant governor that will abandon Democratic principles and agenda after you receive a 30-minute phone call. You cannot have a lieutenant governor at the helm if they don't understand how the committees work. You cannot have
15 seconds remaining.
Yes, sir. And you cannot have a lieutenant governor that doesn't know the structure of this government trying to learn from the outside looking in, because the lieutenant governor role does not come with training wheels. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Hayes, would you like to address that question?
Absolutely. So the lieutenant governor, everyone's answered what the role for the lieutenant governor is, and also we had some additional extracurricular activity. I would say this, you need a lieutenant governor that has the ability to work with Republicans. And my opponents say they've worked with Republicans, but what exactly have they done for all of you? You still have crime in your community, your hospital just about closed down. What have these so-called experienced people done for you? The reason why we as Black people are in the condition we're in, because we have what we call career politicians in positions that are basically put there just to appease Black people and the vote, your vote of the Democratic Party. At the end of the day, you're gonna need leadership and people with real life experience, not some civics lesson that they think they're trying to tell people. I'm a physician, I got 5 degrees. Who says that I can't sit up here and learn how to be a lieutenant governor? These guys didn't learn how to be some kind of state rep when they got in there. Listen, you know, at the end of the day, what you're gonna need is that people who wanna work with other people. And we have other candidates on here who are being very divisive and also are attacking everybody on here. That's not the kind of lieutenant governor that you want. And you're also gonna need a lieutenant governor that's gonna have the ability to work with people. And again, real life experiences. I'm a real small business owner. I've been through a pandemic and applied for the PPP. I'm a real medical doctor, not just some doctor that maybe my child is. I am a doctor. I'm also a physician executive. I'm the only one that will have the ability to negotiate deals with all the hospital systems as well. So at the end of the day, these lieutenant governor candidates, all of them have to be prepared, because at the end of the day, none of them have been lieutenant governors or governors. And number two, they gotta be prepared in the event we have a Republican governor. Everyone wants to throw around Stacey Abrams' name, but she might not become the governor. So what would that get you if we have a Republican governor and you have a Democratic lieutenant governor? We have people on here that says that they said this and said that to the Republican governor, but didn't get anything done. Listen, I work with Republicans. I live with them. I live in Alpharetta. I almost flipped the long side seat by myself with 47.2% of the vote. Democrats like me and Republicans like me. If you want to win and actually have a real person, unlike a career politician, you will vote for Dr. Jason Hayes as lieutenant governor. We don't need these career politicians or people that's in a position to so-called placate you as Black people, because I'm sick of it. And I'm sure you're sick of it too.
Thank you so much. Mr. Bailey, would you like to address that question?
Well, you know, the key thing in all this, and some of it's been talked about, you're the second one in charge, you know, and in the hypothetical I'm talking about, as Stacey Abrams is the governor, you're going to be and then if I'm lucky enough to become your lieutenant governor, I'm going to be her right-hand man. So it's, all right, what's the agenda and what can we get done? Top of that list is Medicaid expansion. And as Representative Shannon said, the powers of the lieutenant governor, which it's got an executive role and a legislative role. The executive role is those appointments to commissions to help direct policy, also standing in for the governor if the governor can't be there. If God forbid the governor dies or the governor runs for another office, you become the governor. And the legislative role is where a lot of the meat is, though. That's where you determine who sits on what committee, who chairs what committee. When a bill is filed in the state Senate, you decide what committee that is assigned to. That's how the Buckhead cityhood bill got killed, is the current lieutenant governor, who's not running again, who's not a fan of it, stuck it in a committee that it was never going to get out of. That's the power of the lieutenant governor. So when we're talking about Medicaid expansion, top of the priority for my list and a future governor, Stacey Abrams, what do? We're probably going to be dealing with a 6-vote deficit in the state Senate. We Democrats will probably win back 1 seat, but I'll still leave a 6 votes short. So we need 6 Republican votes. Then you go out, and I'm from rural Georgia. I'm from Harris County, rural West Georgia. We're going to go out and make arguments to a lot of those rural Republicans that have a lot of constituents that need health care and don't have it right now. A lot of constituents that are an hour and 45 minutes away from an emergency room. If they have a heart attack, they need a hospital emergency room that's closer. They need hospitals open back up. We're going to make those individual arguments, try to get those folks on board, get those Republicans on board so we can get it over the finish line. But I promise you this, if those Republicans stand in the way of that kind of progress, stand in the way of raising teacher pay, making technical school tuition free again, I promise you this, in 2 years, I will raise more money for Democratic state Senate candidates than has ever been raised in the history of this state. And then we'll go out and we'll beat the people that are standing in the way of that progress, get us the majority so that we can get the things done for the working people that need it.
Thank you so much. Dr. Malik, would you like to address this question?
Thank you for the opportunity again, Again, I'll be very specific. We talk in general, but I'll be very specific. Paramount, we need education policy. The teachers should be the highest paid professional individuals in this state and also in the country. Not taking the Medicaid money, $4 billion, we are having a brain drain of medical expertise. We are losing out. We have to stop this madness. We offer good education to everybody. We overcome the gap, the big gap between rural population and the urban population. And we have to work as a family. We cannot be separated. If the rural population needs our help, we should go forward and help them. One of the best way to reach them is through 24 hours education server, education on demand, healthcare on demand. Because I'm a prime example. I'm not harping on reparation. We have to talk about reparation every time we breathe in and breathe out, because I am the product of reparation. The oppressed people, the African American people, the Chinese people, the Korean people, the people who came 400 years ago, 200 years ago, 100 years ago, paved the opportunity for me. I took advantage of them. I salute you. I recognize your sacrifice. Because of your sacrifice, I'm here. I'm going to ask one more sacrifice from you all. Give charity to America. Reparation. Under reparation, we give universal education. We give universal health care so the citizens can be educated enough and healthy enough to take care of themselves. And we save money. We save the national resources and the wealth of Georgia and wealth of the nation. How so? With education, we have got talented labor force. With healthy workforce, we have got talented labor force. That coupled together, we provide preventive measure, exercise and good food comes through education. Again, education and healthcare coupled with preventive measure that will increase the wealth of the nation. Come together. I will breathe in reparation. I'll breathe out reparation, because we need to admit, sorry, we have done wrong to you. We are recognizing you as a law, but we also ask for charity from you. Give us the charity of
15 seconds remaining.
And give us the charity of universal health care coupled with preventive measure. And both will increase the wealth of the nation. The boogeyman is scary tactic of that. We don't have the money. The money is there. Get that $4 billion and then keep on saving more and more with preventive measure and good education. Bring the love between the rural population and the urban population. We need each other. We are family, the family America. Thank you. I salute you, America.
All right, thank you so much. Now I see that we have questions we have hands raised. So the first one I'd like to acknowledge is Shay Steed. Please unmute yourself. You have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I just want to ask all the candidates, as Lieutenant Governor, what would be your, or maybe now as a candidate for Lieutenant Governor, what would be your stance on legalization of gambling in Georgia, since it seems to this past year have been very close to possibly being approved for the state, even horse racing or betting. So I just wanted to know y'all's general stance on that, and how would you pursue it if you became Lieutenant Governor? Thank you.
Mr. Bailey, we will start with you. You have the floor.
Thank you for the question, Ms. Steed. I'm in favor of legalizing gambling, casino gambling, sports betting, and horse racing in Georgia. Our people are going to Cherokee and over south of Montgomery to gamble anyway. We need to legalize it here. We need to regulate it, and we need to tax it. And then we use those tax dollars to invest in our kids' schools, to raise teacher pay, to reinvigorate the Hope Scholarship and make technical school tuition free again. But this is, people in our state are already gambling, but our people are not getting any of the benefits from it. So we need to legalize it. We need to regulate it. We need to tax it. And we need to use those proceeds to invest in our kids' futures.
Thank you so much. Dr. Hayes, would you like to take this question?
Excellent question. Actually, I have discussed this in depth. When you look at our budget, I know some other candidates don't agree with this. When you look at our budget, there's a finite amount of money that we can use to support medical services, mental health services, education. So, again, I tell people you can't rob Peter to pay Paul when you're dealing with the budget. So you have to start looking at revenue, and revenue is important. All of us here as Georgia taxpayers, we pay more taxes than the corporations do. So in order for us to recruit and retain school teachers and retain pay, in order for us to improve the reimbursement rate on Medicaid for Georgia Medicaid doctors, so they want to accept Medicaid, because you have to be credentialed to accept Medicaid. In order to help these hospitals that's going to take the influx of new patients and to help keep hospitals open, we need revenue. So gambling, I agree with, we should use it. People are already going to Cherokee, Alabama, Louisiana. I grew up in Louisiana. We have a gaming commission there. We have riverboats and all of this good stuff. I'm for betting, horse track racing. I'm for riverboat gambling. I'm for even setting up casinos. And we can use those dollars to help fund for scholarships, help improve our education, economic infrastructure in communities. And also, I would throw in there too, there may be a component of reparations through this casino for Indigenous Black people here in Georgia. So we may be able to work something out. That's to answer someone's question about reparations. So anyway, but yes, I am for gambling and making sure that we put all of you in a position so we can help improve your economic growth in your community.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
State Representative Jackson, you have the floor.
This is the reason why experience matters right here. We don't need casinos. I don't have a problem with casinos. I just want to be clear. But this is not one of those trading horses type things. When I got elected in 2016, our budget was $19.2 billion. We just signed into law this year, $30 billion. So I've watched in 6 years, we grew our revenue $11 billion. We cannot be hoodwinked and bamboozled. Look at the lottery. Back in the early 90s, the negotiation was, if you start lottery, if your child gets a B+ or better, they can go to any state school in Georgia for free. What have they done, ladies and gentlemen? They changed the rules. And the lottery is making billions and billions of dollars upon billions. So the argument is not about casinos, whether Georgia needs casinos or not. This is about revenue and where do we invest in? We need to invest more in Black and brown communities. Black and brown communities continue to be left behind. We continue to get bamboozled. And so they're going to keep talking about, both Republicans and Democrats, going to keep talking about casinos and why we need it and let's grow it. Well, look, 12 years ago, we took the film and television industry and we grew it from 300 million to now $9.5 billion. I sit on the Regulated Industries Committee. I'm the only candidate that sit on the Regulated Industries Committee. And we talk about incentivizing corporations, but yet we keep leaving small businesses behind, which is the heartbeat in our communities, the heartbeat in our cities, the heartbeat in our counties. And so if we're going to have a conversation about horse betting, sports betting, casinos, etc., and each of these about $1.8 billion a piece for 4 of them, we're looking at about $8 billion. The question is, where will we invest the money? We just filed a $3.7 billion surplus. That means after we pay all our bills this fiscal year, $3.7 billion. We don't even need to wait for the federal government. Georgia is a very rich state, but we continue to leave Black and brown families behind. And that's the reason why experience matters, because folks talk about things that they don't know what they're talking about. That's the truth. Thank you for the question.
I'm a rebuttal. If you were so good, why haven't you fixed this? I'll look at the funds, okay? Everyone, I want y'all to go to Georgia Budget and Policy Institute and learn about the budget. We're losing. And if we got people that sitting up there saying they don't know, we're losing. Vote these career politicians in and you're gonna have the same problems in the next 4 years.
Mr. Richard, if I may take 30 seconds to rebut.
Yes.
For those who are elected, and I see some of my friends in City South Fulton, numbers matter. There are only 77 Democrats in the House, 103 Republicans in the House. You only need 91 votes. And so on average, every year, every session, Democrats get less than 20 bills passed through. So those 900 to 1,200 pieces of legislation that may end up on the governor's desk, so we are already at a deficit. And so this is the reason why we continue to ask those that look like us to vote so we can flip these seats in both the House and the Senate. And so that's the reason why it's very challenging for us to get things done, because we're still the minority in a state that has 35% African Americans population.
Thank you so much. I'd like to turn it over to State Representative Shannon. You have the floor.
Yes, so this casino, the idea of casinos has come up year after year. I actually don't have any problem with having casinos itself in Georgia, but I do have requirements around what it needs to look like in order to get this done, in order to get my support. Number one, what we see year after year is that 5 minutes before session closes, there is a mystery bill and we're asked to vote on, making casinos happen, approving casinos in Georgia. And a lot of times we don't even get to look at the legislation. They just want us to vote on it. And this is the only piece of legislation that I've seen in my 6 years that every single time it comes up, there's all this mystery around not being able to see the bill, not being able to discuss the bill. So my requirement would be that there would be listening sessions to figure out if the voters want casinos. The other thing is that I want to make sure that in any piece of legislation that we pass, that localities get to just make the final decision on whether or not the casino comes to their area. We don't need another situation like we have with Rivian right now, where it's being forced on a community that does not want that manufacturing plant. What might look good to one county might be a nightmare for another county. So I do feel that we need to make sure that we are able to have a time to research the legislation and really know what is in the bill before we are asked to vote on it. And then also that counties get to approve whether or not the legislation comes. Last but not least, or I'm sorry, that the casino comes to the area. Last but not least, every single time that the state has created a new asset, whether we're talking about medical marijuana or casinos, I have fought for one thing, and that is that we have minority participation. And I'm talking about Black businesses getting a certain amount within these new assets that we set up. I am somebody who supports reparations. I have looked into how other states have done it, and they have always done it through things like this, legalizing recreational marijuana, which I support, and also through things like casinos. But it must go in the legislation. And we have received pushback after pushback after pushback about specifically making sure that Black business owners are definitely going to benefit and are included in this legislation, and it be some sort of vehicle for reparations. So no problem with casinos, but it must be done correctly. And wherever the casinos are going to go, I do believe that local community must be able to approve whether or not they want it in their community.
Thank you so much. Dr. Malik, would you like to answer this question?
Sure. In simple answer, no gambling. It is an addiction. It destroys lives. Most of the gamblings are carried on by adults. I have eyewitness statement saying a person was gambling and he turned around and trying to sell his $500 or plus minus worth of money for the laptop. That laptop is a treasure map. You can find many treasure. Why sell that laptop to gamble for $10, $20? It is an addiction. Don't let addiction take over your life. You take over addiction. You build your own life. You want to get easy money, go and work hard in the field. You want to make money, go and get education. But don't ask for those gambling money. It does not last long. You win many lottery winner you have seen. If you look at the statistics, their life is ruined, destroyed. That is not only one life. In each family, in average, you have got 6 people whose lives are destroyed. So don't go for self-destruction and the destruction of the family. Family is the cherished entity in our society. We cannot let our cherished entity, the family, be destroyed by addiction. Addiction is bad. If you look scientifically and do the psychological and brain movement evaluation, you'll find when somebody goes in addiction, they're not thinking about themselves. They're thinking about immediate satisfaction for their inner need. So get away from gambling. Don't even think about it. If you want money, if you want to get good money, go and work hard. Look at me. I came with $1,200 in this country and I made a life out of it. I had many challenges. I did not understand the society. The bureaucrats came after me, took advantage of me, but I did not give up because I had a clean thought. I had a clean goal. I had destination to go. I fought them and every time I won. And I'll be winning because I do not do anything wrong. Always do the right thing. If 100% people ask for gambling, I will say no to gambling. Gambling is an addiction. Don't go for addiction. Earn your own money with your hard labor. Sweat it out, whatever it is. Get education. That will take you. The education is the tool which will be in your head all your life. Let's
15 seconds remaining.
Time on gambling and casinos. Let's talk about education. Let's talk about healthcare. $4 billion are being drained out of Georgia. Our medical expertise are drained out of Georgia. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about real issues which affects me every day. In my house, I don't do gambling because it's not part of the household. What I deal with is healthcare, food on the table, education, computer, internet access, nanotechnology, 24 hours edu server, and bringing the rural and
Dr.
urban.
Dr. Malik, time is up. All right, thank you so much. All right, so I would like to acknowledge Monique McCoy. You have the floor. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening, everyone. I am Monique McCoy, a candidate for Georgia House of Representatives, District 61. I just wanted to ask each of the candidates to share something about themselves that distinguishes them from their opponents, not looking for any personal attacks to point out what's wrong with the rest of the people who are running, but something that stands out about you or your experience that would help us make a decision when we go to vote on which one of you we would like to vote for. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. We'll start with Charlie Bailey. You have the floor.
Thank you for the question, Ms. McCoy. I would say that I honor the service and experience of all my colleagues here and even the ones that haven't joined us. I can say for myself what I think I bring. One, I'm a proven statewide nominee. I was a statewide Democratic nominee 4 years ago. I got 49% of the vote, the highest vote share of any down ballot statewide Democrat. And I got that even though I was running against a Republican incumbent and national Republicans spent $3.3 million against me. So that's first. Second, I'm from rural West Georgia. I bring a perspective from outside of Metro Atlanta, and I live in Atlanta now. But that perspective from, half the state's metro Atlanta, half the state is outside of it. I think that perspective is a good one for the ticket. And third, in my work, I have worked to get, as an attorney, I've worked to get people justice throughout my career, whether that's in the civil justice system against insurance companies and big corporations, or in the criminal justice system on behalf of the victims of the violence that swirls around organized crime. My work has been focused on getting justice as a lawyer. So those are the three things that I would point to in my background that I think are beneficial to the ticket.
Thank you so much. And State Representative Shannon, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you for this question. There are so many folks in this race, and obviously it is hard to figure out who to vote for. So I would say this is what makes me different. A lot of folks can talk about what it is that they think that they would do in a certain situation, but until you've been in that situation, you just don't know what you would be able to do. I'll talk to you about what I have done. I have been one of the most outspoken folks as far as speaking up for our democratic values in the state house. In fact, when I announced my campaign, the Associated Press put out a quote saying that I have been one of the most outspoken against Republicans, forcing direct confrontations with them when they are running afoul to our values. And so that's true. I've been able to fight hard, but I've also been able to get things done when Republicans have both the House and the Senate. I'm the only person in this race who was able to get Republicans to expand Medicaid even just a little bit. So I led the successful effort to expand postpartum Medicaid because we had a huge maternal mortality issue in this state. We still have a problem. And at the point that I began working on this issue, folks are being kicked off of Medicaid 60 days after giving birth. And so what we were seeing is that Black women were dying months after giving birth just because they didn't have health insurance coverage to do their follow-up visits to get things in check that they developed only because of being pregnant. And so through working with the House Republican budget chair, I was able to make the case to Republicans as to why we needed to do this. And I organized with the community. And because of those efforts, we now have 1 year of postpartum Medicaid expansion. So that's what I've been able to do. The other thing I've been able to do, I'm the only person on this ticket, I'm the only person in this race who actually has had the experience of directly standing up to the Trump lawyers when they came to Georgia before my committee in 2020 and tried to convince our committee to throw out the votes of Georgians and give the state to Trump for electoral votes. I stood up to those folks. I received death threats over it. Would I do it again? Absolutely, I would. Last but not least, another example, being able to get something done even under Republican minority, in Republican rule. When the pandemic happened, the first thing I thought about was workers. I knew that everybody was going to focus on businesses and they were not going to focus on workers. When things started to shut down, I immediately reached out to someone within the Department of Labor who I am convinced this woman is a Trump supporter, but I was able to make the case to her, hey, it doesn't matter what party we come from, we know that workers do need their unemployment. And so when you were seeing on the news that the DOL would not take phone calls, they wouldn't let folks into the office, I had immediately built a relationship with DOL and I was getting folks paid around the state. Folks would contact me and say, I filed for unemployment 4 months ago, never received any contact from DOL. I need my money. And I was able to get them paid within 24 hours just through building relationships. In fact, I worked on a case last week and I still make that commitment even now. If you never got paid your unemployment, reach out to me. I can have them to investigate it. And if they owe you money, they will pay it to you. And so those are the things that I've been able to do. So what separates me is I fight hard for our values. And I'm one of the most outspoken folks in fighting against what we don't want to see. But at the same time, I'm somebody who is focused on bottom line results and making sure that we are making a difference for our community.
Thank you so much. I would like to turn it over to Dr. Hayes. You have the floor.
Absolutely. So one thing about me, when people see doctor, they think money, they think someone's coming from a privileged background. I grew up in a single parent home in an economically depressed community, very similar to that of East Point in the College Park. So I understand fully exactly what all of you are going through. In addition, I'm a candidate that's a physician. I'm a small business owner. I have additional studies and training with a public health, master's in public health with a focus on healthcare administration. I've interned at the Centers for Disease Control. I've trained, worked at the Veteran Affairs. Grandparents were both vets. My grandfather and my dad were vets, familiar with the VA system. I take care of VA patients at my office. I'm a Georgia Medicaid doctor. I do see Georgia Medicaid patients and Medicare patients. I've been credentialed by both of those programs. I understand it. I've also advocated for patients in Washington on behalf of improving Medicare. I've actually worked with state legislators when I was in Tennessee. So I do have state policy experience. I have an executive MBA. So I understand budgeting, finance, accounting. I actually also have a small business. So I understand small business owners when you've gone through the pandemic, applying for a PPP or an EIDL, because I did mine myself. But I do understand that some people don't have the ability to go back and get an MBA or have an accountant. So I'm the only one who understands from that particular level. Yes, I may not be a politician that has public office experience, but don't turn around and tell other people that they can't run for office. And don't turn around and tell people that they can't be in this position and be qualified. Because at the end of the day, no candidate has been a lieutenant governor or a governor. Second, in 2020, all of us, we voted for Senator Warnock and Senator Ossoff, and they had zero office experience, zero public office experience. But yet they're doing a great job here for the great state of Georgia. And you voted for these individuals by what they can bring. Talk is cheap. And also saying what you did is cheap. What I'm trying to say is that if you don't have an assessment on what's going on here in Georgia and an actual plan, you're losing. Because right now we are losing. We're losing in our Black communities. We are losing. And I'm gonna tell you like this, I'm the only candidate that has said, I will stand up against a Republican and I will stand up against a Democrat if it means making sure that marginalized community, Black communities, people that look like me are put back in the position they should be, because we've all been victims of the prison industrial complex, all been victims of redlining. I'll stand up against anybody if it means making sure we take care of people. That's how I was trained as a doctor. I'm in a results-oriented field. This is what I do. Other people can't say that. They'll come on here and try to pull the wool over your eyes. But listen to me very clear. You vote for someone like me, your children, your grandchildren will have the opportunity to run for office too, because we need a lot of reform in this political system that's not designed for people like you and me.
Thank you so much. State Representative Jackson, you have the floor.
Listen, I have nothing but respect for everybody that's running for office. When you put your name on the dotted line and run for office, I got mad respect for you. But I'm a husband. So it's hard for someone to say they can advocate for husbands if you're not a husband. I'm a father of 7 children. My wife and I have 7 amazing children. But it's hard for you to say that you can advocate for families if you have no children. I'm a retired naval officer after 22 years fighting for this democracy. And I appreciate Ms. McCoy's question, because it is going to be a challenge to differentiate oneself from 9. So let me be absolutely clear. I'm the only candidate of the 9 that's been fighting for democracy, voting rights, and civil rights since 1983 for 38 plus years. I'm the only candidate that was on the front line for 22 years for everyone. I don't look at that as a badge of courage, but it means something about leadership and service. I've been in corporate America for 10 years. I've been a state representative for 6. What else differentiates me? I'm the only candidate that's a member of the Panhellenic, the Divine 9. I'm a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. I'm the only candidate that's been a life member of the NAACP for years, not just yesterday. Some people talk about fighting for civil rights and voting rights. I put my membership where my mouth is. I also serve on 3 different nonprofit boards because it's the right thing to do. We are all given 24 hours a day. The question is, what do you do with it? And I do get passionate around those, especially in our communities, that say something that they don't know what they're talking about, because we are in a season where misinformation and disinformation has killed Georgians. I'm the only candidate that walked into Governor Kemp's office in the early stages of this pandemic, and offer some suggestions, but Governor Kemp delayed taking those suggestions for 5.5 weeks. And we ended up with 37,000 Georgians dead. This is not about who gets the credit. I only asked Governor Kemp to do something that we've been doing overseas, setting up military triages, reinforcing our healthcare system because it's fragile, activate the National Guard. So that's the reason why. I appreciate Ms. McCoy's question. Thank you very much.
And Dr. Malik, you have the floor. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
So much. I'm a pioneer. I came with $1,200 and a small suitcase in this country. My first job was a dishwashing job in the campus cafeteria where about 1,000 students dined during the lunch and dinner and breakfast. And know how much they paid me? $2.72. I believe in hard work. Be determined to achieve what you need and be disciplined. This is what I will bring to Georgia. I ran for US Congress in 2016 against Mr. Bob Woodall. I received 115,000 votes, and I'm the reason why Mr. Woodall did not keep on running anymore. However, I wrote a letter to Mr. Woodall that I'm willing to work with you and cooperate with you, and I'm going to bring trade and commerce to Georgia. And Miss Julie Thompson wrote a beautiful article about my topic, and that's what I'm going to bring to Georgia: economic development. When I say reparation, I mean it. When I speak about reparation, then other people start following me, because some people are scared that they will not get enough vote if we talk about reparation. Right is right, wrong is wrong. I'm sorry, African American. I'm sorry, Chinese American. I'm sorry, Native Americans. I'm sorry, Korean Americans. Things have gone wrong for you. We have oppressed you for so many years. It is time to recognize that. I say, I'm sorry. Is it hard enough? It is too hard to say sorry. I'm sorry. My reparation was when you all supported me to learn how to fish, to learn the language, write a book on entrepreneurship, learn the Chinese language, learn the accent of Missouri, then accent of Kansas, then the accent of Georgia. Yes, I traveled. I'm a pioneer. I established my college because I believe in education, and I'm going to establish back again. Because of the bureaucratic corruption, my dream was shattered, but I did not give up. If you go down 85, you see my college coming up very soon. Don't give up. I'm with you. I'm going to teach you how to fish. I'm going to teach you how to dream. I'm going to teach you how to finish your education. I'm going to teach you how to take care of your health. We need universal health care coupled with preventive measure. I'm going to destroy the boogeyman who tells you there is not enough funding for you to get universal education and universal health care coupled with preventive measure, because those two will increase the wealth of the nation. Those two will increase the wealth of Georgia. So let's come together, vote for me. I will work shoulder to shoulder with Miss Stacey Abrams and bring good life to us, because I know what is hard work. I know what is determination. I know what is to be focused. Nobody guided me. I was all in all. I was a young student over here. I did not drink. I did not gamble. I studied.
Dr. Malik, we're at time.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
All right, thank you so much. Now, it is 8:30. Do any of the candidates have a hard stop at 8:30? Otherwise, we can go till about 9 o'clock.
It's fine with me.
All right. Dr. Hayes, are you okay with us going to 9 o'clock?
Yes, sir. Perfect.
All right.
Enjoy.
Representative Jackson, are you okay with 9 o'clock?
I am.
Thank you. Representative Shannon, are you okay with 9 o'clock?
Yes.
And then Mr. Bailey, are you okay with us going till 9 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you so much for working with us. We have 3 hands up, and I'd like to call on Leonard Robinson. Please unmute yourself. You have the floor.
Hello, my name is Leonard Robinson, a transplant from California. I came out here 6 years ago, and I want to know what your positions on topics I haven't heard: sustainability, renewable energy, alternative fuel cars, and environmental justice. That hasn't been discussed, and I can't find it anywhere, discussed anywhere. So what are your positions on it? Because these are growing topics, and these things create jobs. Environmental justice levels the playing field.
All right, we will start with you, State Representative Jackson. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson, for the question. In full transparency, I sit on the Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunication. And if you go to derekjackson.org, I'm almost certain that I have a bill as well as my position on climate control. And the reason why I'm highlighting this, during my 7 years I was at General Electric, I was the executive that dealt with the renewables and hydro and wind and solar. And because of my expertise in renewables, Georgia continued to move forward in having mixed energy sources. In fact, I was just last year down at Habersham, where we have a solar farm that stretches from, if you took each of the panels, it would stretch from the northern part of North Carolina to the southern part to Florida. I also had the opportunity to go out to our nuclear plant. I know there's been a lot of controversy, but it's still proven that nuclear does more good than bad. I was stationed on board an aircraft carrier, a nuclear propulsion aircraft carrier, USS Nimitz. And when you start talking about efficiency and effectiveness, when you start talking about clean air, fresh water that I just went and retrieved, fresh water to drink, so we don't end up like Flint, Michigan, you got to look at sustainability. You got to look at making sure that we do the right thing. Listen, I would love to talk more, but the last thing is this: we have to have environmental justice. We have to stop having plants in Black and brown communities that's polluting Black and brown communities. And so I would be a lieutenant governor to make sure that I place stringent controls and influence corporations to do the right thing for all communities, because I don't want no one to have to battle cancer. I don't want no child to have to deal with allergies and breathing challenges and things of that nature. So I really appreciate your question, because we're not talking more about environmental justice and sustainability and renewables as much as we should. And so thank you, sir, for your question.
Thank you so much. State Representative Shannon, you have the floor.
Yes, so I talk a lot about the reason I'm running for lieutenant governor is because regressive policies have shaped a harsh reality for far too many Georgians, particularly working Georgians. And environmental justice is one of those issues. All things related to the environment is one of those issues. And I say that because we have regressive policies both on individuals trying to affect climate change, as well as regressive policies on not holding corporations accountable for polluting. So on the individual side, we've got laws that literally penalize you for making individual good decisions for the environment. Case in point, I have an electric vehicle. If you have an electric vehicle, you actually pay a tax at the end of the year for having an electric vehicle. A lot of other states that are looking at ways to do something about climate change do not penalize you for not driving a gas vehicle. So that's some of the ways that we have regressive legislation that really needs to be reversed. And a lot of this has been because Republicans are beholden to special interest groups, including car dealerships. They are beholden to corporations. They frequently talk about we're one of the best states in the country to do business. That is because you can come here and you can pay workers anything you want, and you can also do all the polluting you want, and nobody will hold you accountable. So what we really need to do is make sure that we're making it easy for folks to do their individual responsibilities of affecting climate change, but then also make sure that we are holding corporations accountable and make sure that we are not just a wasteland dumping place for big corporations that want to come set up and not have to do anything to work on sustainability. And that is what I would do as Lieutenant Governor. We actually have agencies and things like that in place, but the enforcement goes right out the window. That's what you typically see under Republican administrations, because they just want to make everything so easy for businesses. And while I understand that we want to attract great jobs, we also have to make sure that we are not making our communities unsafe. And what we tend to see is there's a lack of consent when these big corporations and these polluters come in. They are allowed to easily set up against the consent of Black and brown communities. They're able to set up quickly, almost overnight, and then the community is left to fight against these things. And it's really because government is just looking the other way on these issues.
Thank you so much. I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Hayes. You have the floor.
Great question. I mentioned before, I've grown up in an economically depressed community just around the corner from my grandmother's house where I grew up at. We actually had a plant there. So I found it interesting that every community that I've gone to, whether if it's in college, medical school, residency, there was always some type of environmental injustice there. When I was studying for my master's in public health, we actually took a course in environmental racism, and we talked in depth about all of these issues and concerns. This also includes the construction of the interstate system that, coincidentally, if you go to every urban metropolitan United States, goes directly through the Black community. So we must do things, in my opinion, to reverse a lot of the racism, environmental racism that's going on. Here in Georgia, we have the lowest tobacco tax, 37 cents. That should be raised well over to $1, $1.25, $1.50. That will do two things. One, get us revenue, and two, deter people from smoking, and also save money on the state in terms of hospitalizations for lung-related diseases. We also must make sure that we get the cars off the road. We must incentivize businesses, corporations to keep non-essential employees home. When we do that, we keep the cars off the road, we decrease carbon emissions. We must also looking at either doing one of two things, either increasing the gas tax, or we must start incentivizing us getting electric cars. Because right now, electric cars are expensive to buy. So that's something that we have to work on as well. And then also start pushing solar and making that affordable for people. And then the last thing is light rail. We must make sure that that's available to help decrease, again, improve transportation for people and connect all of Georgia, but also put us in a position where we can get these cars off the road. So I appreciate the question. I have many friends from California. They talk to me a lot about what's going on out there. So I appreciate that question about making sure we focus on a greener environment. So thank you, sir.
Thank you for that response. Charlie Bailey, you have the floor.
Thank you for the question. I'm currently right now with some of my colleagues representing 62 individuals across the state that are suing 3 different corporate polluters: Sterigenics in Smyrna, Bard Chemical in Covington, and KPR in Augusta. We're bringing suits on behalf of those folks that were poisoned by carcinogens that were emitted from those corporate polluters from those plants there. So in my work, I have fought for and am fighting for currently environmental justice. The Republicans that have run this state for 20 years have repeatedly, they don't believe in climate change. They don't admit that it's true. They haven't done anything to try to correct it, and they've made it worse by giving special interest tax breaks to corporate polluters, to those that build coal plants, those that dump coal ash in ponds that the EPD, the Environmental Protection Division, refuses to follow EPA regulation to have a lining there to clean up those ponds. On issue after issue after issue, they take the sides of businesses that are exploiting our communities and are restricting the right to have clean air to breathe and clean water to drink. We need to reverse these policies and not give these special interest tax breaks to the polluters, but give tax breaks to both individuals, as Representative Shannon said, that have electric vehicles. We used to have a tax rebate with that probably 7 years ago. We had one, the Republicans took it away. We need to bring that back. And we also need to incentivize the development of clean energy, small businesses that want to build up our solar capacity, our wind capacity. Solar is bigger in Georgia than wind. We don't have as many planes as out there in the Midwest. But those that want to build those kinds of businesses, we need to be incentivizing that and redeveloping our electrical grid to integrate those kinds of clean energies so that it can be sold and dispersed across the state. That the legislature, the General Assembly, and not my friends here, but the majority is bought and sold by Georgia Power and the corporate polluters. They do everything they tell them to. They don't ask any questions. We need a lieutenant governor that doesn't have their phone number, ain't gonna pick up the phone when they call, and fights on behalf of the people of Georgia to have clean air to breathe and clean water to drink. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we'll turn it over to you, Dr. Malik. You have the floor.
Thank you. From the very beginning, I've been is a component by default. We have to educate our masses, our citizens, how to be responsible. Yes, government needs to put policies in place. But my question to us, to myself and you, what are you doing? Take the responsibility on your shoulder. Go out and plant a tree or a seed every day. Collect your seeds from the fruits you eat. Go on the highway and the street where you see it is barren, throw those seeds over there and the nature will take care. Yes, we have to protect our environment. Just think about it in your house, from the stove, from the heating place, smoke is coming out continuously and you are in that house. Likewise, we're in this world in a bubble. We cannot afford to pollute. Now, people, doctors and the scientists are saying they find plastics, minute plastics, molecular level plastics in our hearts, in our lungs, in our system. The fish are dying. We are polluting the ocean. There's a reason why in nature, 3/4 of the world is water and we are polluting it. We have to provide clean water to the rural population. We have to provide clean water to the urban population. We have to bring our citizens together for a good health. That's the reason I promote healthcare with preventive measure. Preventive measure is part of the environment. Good breathing. The other day, a good lady was saying she's suffering from cancer. I gave her a comment. Grow with your 2 hands and eat whatever you grow with your 2 hands. Go organic. Do exercise, do heavy breathing of oxygen. That will cure you. Because I'm a prime example of taking care of the environment, taking care of your health, and taking care of your mental capability. Give tools to the citizen to survive. Give tools to the citizen of knowledge so they can make their own decision. Once you have the knowledge, you understand. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. What I do is take good care of myself. So let's come together and take good care of ourselves, the environment and our health. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And the last hand I see is Michael Edwards. You have the floor. Please unmute yourself.
Yes, my question is for all of the candidates for lieutenant governor. I have yet to hear anyone speak on State Bill 319. Now, this bill that Kemp passed, sort of like under the table, it may work in a rural environment, but it is a total disaster in an urban environment like the city of Atlanta. And I'm wondering why none of these lieutenant governors or candidates for lieutenant governor has addressed this State Bill 319. Please elaborate.
And we'll start with Charlie Bailey. You have the floor.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Edwards. I've had multiple public statements about SB 319. For those of you who don't know this, they call it, I'm not even gonna call it what they call it. What it is permitless carry. And it makes us, the citizens, it makes law enforcement less safe. There were 4,000 individuals last year that were denied permits because of something in their background, domestic violence, conviction, or something similar. Now, you don't have to get a permit in order to carry. That is, as you have said, it's a recipe for disaster. It makes us less safe. They come back with some nonsense like, well, if you go to a gun store and you buy a weapon, then you have to go through a background check. Well, that's true, but a lot of the people that are getting these weapons, they're not going to the gun store, they're going to the gun show, where you can take cash and there ain't no background check. There's no check of any kind. You can get the weapon and now you can openly carry it. It creates situations where you've got people in public that are carrying a weapon. Before the passage and the signing of this bill, a police officer could approach someone and ask to see a permit for what they're carrying. They can't even do that now because there are no permitting. Sometimes when you're able to catch those people that don't have a permit and they're supposed to have a permit for what they're carrying, you're able to divert violence from happening. That's not a tool that law enforcement can use now. So it's going to get more guns in the hands of those that don't need them, and it's going to make our communities less safe. And it is all around a horrible idea. And if I'm elected lieutenant governor, we're going to fight to repeal that law.
Thank you so much. Dr. Hayes, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. SB 319, I actually addressed this in my podcast, Beyond the Race. Talked about public health crisis, gun violence. You know, first and foremost, there are disparities between rural communities and urban communities. Our young men, Black men and Black women, are most likely to die, or better yet, let me backtrack. Georgia has one of the highest homicide rates here in the United States of America, in particular disproportionate among Black people. So the permitless carry bill actually is going to harm many of us. It's going to make the jobs harder for law enforcement to make sure that people are able to carry, or at least have the capacity to carry. And the other concerns I have with it is that, you know, people get guns. Do they know how to use the gun? Do they know how to clean it? Do they understand the laws of keeping the guns away from children? Do they know that they have to lock it up and store it? Do they understand that if someone breaks into your home and is running away, you cannot shoot them in the back, or you will be arrested? When I was living in Tennessee, I ended up getting an MP40. That's a military police 40 cal gun. And in Tennessee, in order to get a gun, you have to take a class and a permit. So those are things that I would love to have here in Georgia. We need to, again, repeal SB 319. And we have to make people more responsible. And also we must address the gun violence in our communities. No senator or congressperson is talking about the Dicky Amendment. And that's an amendment from J. Dickey, a congressperson from Arkansas in 1996, pro-NRA, would forbid any federal agency from studying gun violence. You cannot make legislation if you do not have data and statistics. And the NRA has made it impossible. I'm against the NRA because anytime a Black person is killed by police, you can't find the NRA. You can't find these people. So my whole thing is that we're going to need more people to be aware about the Dickey Amendment. And any person that's talking about gun safety and control, they need to talk about getting the Dickey Amendment repealed. What Trump did in 2018 did sort of help to an extent with studying gun violence. But we must study more gun violence and understand a direct correlation between guns that are in our streets that's being placed there by certain people to hurt Black people here in this country, in addition to making sure we reduce crime and all of those things here. So again, go to my podcast, Beyond the Race. It is called A Public Health Crisis, Gun Violence, and I'll talk more in depth about SB 319, and we must have it repealed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Representative Jackson, you have the floor.
Mr. Edwards, thank you for your question. Listen, when we deal with over 900 pieces of legislation, there are some bills that we'll never forget. Senate Bill 319 is one of those bills I would never forget. That not only did I voted against this bill twice when it came through the House chamber, not only did I stand in protest in the well and in press conferences. Listen, Governor Kemp is trying to do two things that's practically impossible. He attacked the city of Atlanta. He attacked the city of South Fulton. He attacked all cities that's dealing with crime, right? If you look at all 537 cities, there's some crime. But the last thing you want to do is to add more guns to the streets and then say, I'm trying to protect families. Listen, you cannot go fishing in Georgia without a fishing license. You cannot drive an automobile without a driver license. You cannot go hunting without a hunting license. So a license is not the way the government's trying to control one's life. It's about what, following, that oath. That's to keep citizens safe. And so Senate Bill 319, they're trying to have it both ways. They're trying to talk about that it's a Second Amendment right. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the Second Amendment, Mr. Edwards. And so let's be clear about this. If I were the lieutenant governor, when Senate Bill 319 would have been going between the House and the Senate chamber, that bill would not have seen the light of day, because I would have stuck it in a committee in the Senate chamber to make sure that it would not hit the Senate floor. That's one of the powers that the lieutenant governor can do, as my friend Representative Shannon mentioned earlier. And so that's the reason why legislative experience matters, because we have to make sure that dangerous bills like this, when people are trying to say good, when we know the intent is bad. Thank you for your question, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you so much. And we'll pass it to Representative Shannon. You have the floor.
Yes, so let me start by saying this. I actually have a license to carry. I was licensed here by DeKalb County, where my district resides. And what I had to do to get a gun license was I had to be fingerprinted. That is to make sure that I am who I say I am. And then also that allows the county to do a real background check. And with Senate Bill 319, that's one of the most dangerous provisions in this bill, is that we will be trusting gun stores to do background checks. And from my time working in business, working with staffing companies and other companies that deal with background checks, what I know is that all background checks are not created equal. Some companies will run background checks that is akin to just shouting out the window and seeing if anything comes back. And then you have the government background checks are ones where they check nationwide to see if you really have anything in your background. So that's one of the harmful things in this bill. I talk a lot about police accountability issues and as that relates to what that does to community safety. But I have to say that this is one of the things that I can guarantee you will not make things safer for anybody's community. And that's regardless whether it's in the urban areas or in the rural areas, it will not make us safer. It also will make law enforcement, it'll make it less safe to be a law enforcement officer. So while I support everybody having the right to have a firearm, we need to have common sense restrictions around what it means to have the responsibility of having a firearm. Somebody mentioned earlier that, you have to secure your gun or you'll be in trouble. That's actually not true. Georgia has been abysmal on its legislation around responsible gun ownership. What I would do as Lieutenant Governor, number one, this bill would have never come to the floor. But not only that, I would advance common sense gun control laws, like making it law that you have to secure your gun in your house, like making sure that you have to have a real background check before you can get a gun. So there are a lot of things that we can do. And it's because I'm serious about common sense gun restriction legislation. This is one of the reasons that Moms Demand Action has endorsed me every time I've run for re-election.
Thank you so much. And we'll wrap this question up with Dr. Malik. You have 3 minutes. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. I will propose two things to America, to Georgia. Have a bullet fingerprinting system. Whenever anyone buys a gun, you have that person, after they buy the guns, to shoot a bullet and keep the fingerprint of that bullet. Whenever a bullet is fired at any place, we'll trace that bullet and we'll put it in our database to find the DNA of that bullet, to find the fingerprint of the bullet, and go back to the person whose gun was used. Another thing we can do, satellite tracking system. The technology is there. Today, or maybe from 80s, the satellite could track down 1/4 lying on the floor, on the ground. Why not use that technology? And one who is buying the gun should pay for it. Testing the gun with the bullet, pay for it. Put a chip in the gun, pay for it. If you want to have gun, that's fine. But there should be accountability. We should be able to track every guns sold in this country. There should be psychological evaluation of individuals. There should be mandatory training. There should be license. There should be background check. And open carry, I don't support open carry. I have carried guns, and I know what goes through your mind when you have a gun in your hip, because it destroys your normal process of thinking. You think you're mightier than the thou. We should not allow those kind of behavior in our society. If you want to carry a gun for your safety, keep it hidden. You don't have to open carry anything. You don't have to show up. If you're a macho, show your macho-ness in serving the community, serving the society, make our environment clean, overcome the gap between urban population and the rural population, bring unity among us. Anybody goes for a gun, they should get an evaluation of themselves from their neighbors, from their friends, and from their family, and from their teachers. Teachers are the best evaluator. You have to do your work for whatever reason you want that gun. So
we have 15 seconds remaining.
We have to come together as a society. I'll go even further. We do genetic testing of the temperament of that individual, because genetic science is a real science. It is not a fairy tale. So let's start with fingerprinting bullets of each gun. Let's do satellite tracking and see everything will evaporate like that. Let's go for the real solution. And that will protect our children, because every day, every week, every month, you see hundreds of children are being killed by insane individuals. What do children do to you? They're going to the campus. They're taking their kindergarten class. They're taking their secondary class. They're taking their
Dr. Malik, we're at time.
Thank you so much. God bless America.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so as we begin to wrap up, I would ask the candidates if you could put your contact information in the chat, and we have 3 minutes for closing remarks. We will start those closing remarks with Representative Jackson. You have the floor for 3 minutes.
Again, thank you, South Fulton Coalition, for having us this evening, because I think it's very important to the question that Ms. McCoy asked, what differentiates us? And so again, I will end the way I started. I'm a God-fearing man. I'm a husband, father. My wife and I, we have 4 daughters, 3 sons, and 1 grandson. We have 5 children that are in college. I understand working families. I'm a retired naval officer after 22 years. Been fighting for voting rights, civil rights, LGBTQ rights before it was even called LGBTQ. Democracy since 1983. Corporate executive, 10 years. I understand. 6 years under the Gold Dome. And it's been a blessing to represent the city of South Fulton. I'm the vice chair of the largest Black caucus in the nation, the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus. I'm also the vice chair of Fulton County delegation. I don't run away from leadership. The 2 things that the military has taught me is how to lead when under pressure. The second thing that the military has taught me is how to work with everyone towards that one mission. So when you think about the lieutenant governor, it's very clear. You need to have someone that's experienced, specifically legislatively. Yes, there may be some one-offs out there where someone actually been successful, but very seldom you pick the occupation where someone that's inexperienced do something very successfully under pressure, especially when you're talking about 40 legislative days, when you have to go through hundreds and hundreds of pieces of legislation, anywhere from 2 pages to 300 pages. I pride myself of studying the budget because that is, in accordance with the Georgia Constitution, the one specific
15
mandate
seconds
in my
remaining.
law. And so I ask you all to continue to research me and others. You can go to my website, derekjackson.org. I look forward to earning your vote, and I will place my information in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to turn it over to Charlie Bailey. You have 3 minutes for your closing remarks.
Thank you, Rashard. I spoke a little about this at the intro, but a lot of folks have joined us since. So I just want to talk about why I'm running for Lieutenant Governor. And you've heard from all of us this evening, and we share a lot of the same views. But, you know, in my view, I'm running for Lieutenant Governor because every day the vast majority of Georgians, they get up and they go to work and they're worried about, is my kid safe? How are they doing in school? If I get a hospital bill, can I pay it? Instead of working on those issues that are closest to the hearts and the lives of the people of Georgia, our main 2 Republican opponents in this race are in a competition over who can be the biggest authoritarian. One of them, Burt Jones, was a false elector for Donald Trump, tried to overturn the election. The other, Butch Miller, recently brought Marjorie Taylor Greene to the floor of the state Senate as a representation of the politics that he believes in. And for both of them, it's a politics of hate and division, politics that says not everybody's vote does matter the same, not everybody's child matters the same, not everybody's community matters the same. But I'll tell you what I believe. I believe we are all human beings, that we all love our families, that we all deserve the same dignity, the same safety, the same justice, the same opportunity to build for our families a better life with more opportunity than the one that we had. And it's those values that have driven my career, whether that is fighting for civil justice as an attorney under Governor Roy Barnes at the Barnes Law Group, or back in private practice now, the firm Cook and Conley, whether it was a senior assistant district attorney in Fulton County working on organized crime, whether it was as the Democratic nominee for Attorney General 4 years ago when I got 49% of the vote, the highest vote share of any down ballot statewide Democrat, or whether it's this campaign, it's those values that drive it. And that's why if I'm lucky enough to be your lieutenant governor, we're going to get to work on those issues. We're going to pass Medicaid expansion, provide health care for over 600,000 Georgians. We're going to raise teacher pay. I think they need to be paid $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year, and reduce class sizes to give our kids the educational opportunities they need. We need to make technical school tuition free again, so that our kids have the full panoply of opportunities coming out of high school. I'm a proven statewide nominee. I'm proud to be endorsed by Mayor Shirley Franklin and Congresswoman Lucy McBath, Congressman Hank Johnson, former Governor Roy Barnes, and the last Democratic Lieutenant Governor, Mark Taylor.
You have 15 seconds remaining.
I humbly ask for your vote and your support, and I promise you this: if you stand with me in this election, you will never have to apologize, and you will always know my friend Charlie, he fights for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I would like to turn it over to Dr. Malik. You have 3 minutes for your closing remarks.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Rashid Malik. I came to America in 1979. I started life from the very bottom, worked hard with determination, took care of good care of myself. And today I'm at a point where I feel serving America to the best of fashion. I welcome all you to come and evaluate each candidate and see what we have to offer. I offer you universal education. If you have your education, you can do whatever you want to do. The good system of education in America teaches you a methodology, how to be a lifelong learner. We have to be lifelong learner. In that way, we can learn anything new which is coming out every day and adjust to it. And the other thing is our healthcare. If we don't have healthcare, if we don't have a good health, it is difficult to sustain yourself. Healthcare coupled with preventive measure, i.e. exercise and good food, will save the wealth of Georgia and wealth of the nation. In that we will have more money to good things. Invest money in environment, invest money in on our children, invest to protect the society. So we should come forward and get education. I believe in education. With education, you become independent. And again, I'm going to request the oppressed people, the African Americans, the Chinese, the Koreans, the Native Americans, and other immigrants, please give us the charity of reparation. Please give us the tool to fish. We want to do fishing. So we can support ourselves. Reparation does not mean that you're giving handout. You're giving us the opportunity to get universal education for every citizen. You are giving us the opportunity to have universal health care through preventive measure. I promise you, we'll stop that money drain of $4 billion every year from Georgia. We'll stop the brain drain of medical expertise from Georgia. We have to bring them back. We have to stop the polluting industry. There's technology over here where we can use the solar energy, the wind energy. And sometimes we have to take the responsibility on our shoulder. Ask yourself, how many trees or seeds did you plant in the last month? Find the
15
answer.
seconds.
I welcome all you to participate in whatever capacity you are. Don't give up. We each individuals are very important. Thank you so much. God bless America.
Thank you so much. And to close it out, we have Representative Shannon. You have the floor, 3 minutes.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, South Fulton, for coming together this afternoon to hear from the candidates. I'm State Representative Renita Shannon, running for Lieutenant Governor, and I'll say this. Other candidates will tell you what they want to do, but I'll show you receipts of what I've actually gotten done. From figuring out a way to get workers paid during the pandemic when DOL closed up shop, to leading the successful effort to expand postpartum Medicaid in the state so that we could stop folks from dying just trying to give birth, to standing up to the Trump lawyers when they came before my committee in 2020 and demanded that we throw out the votes of Georgians and give the state to Trump. I have been able to get the job done. I'm running for lieutenant governor because regressive policies have shaped a harsh reality for far too many Georgians, particularly working Georgians, and we need a lieutenant governor who is going to fight for our collective future. From Working Families Party to New Georgia Project PAC to NARAL and many other advocacy organizations, those are the organizations that you trust, and they trust me to be lieutenant governor, and that's why they have endorsed me. You can find out more information about my campaign at renitashannon.com. I would ask that you would please take a look at my campaign and please vote for Renita Shannon for lieutenant governor.
Thank you so much. I would just like to extend a warm thank you to all of the candidates that appeared tonight. On Thursday. I'm sorry, I forgot you, Dr. Hayes. Go ahead.
It's okay.
You have 3 minutes.
No problem.
3 minutes.
3 minutes. All right. Thank you again. My name is Dr. Jason Hayes. I'm a physician, small business owner, philanthropist. Also, I have done work on the state and federal level, working doing policy for people and advocating for people. The first question I want to ask you is that, do you have better health care? Your hospital is closing under these career politicians' watch. It's closing. You still have crime in your community. You have less job opportunities. If your life is better, vote for these career politicians, vote for them. But if you say, Dr. Hayes, no, my life is not better, our healthcare is worse, then you have every right and moral responsibility to research other candidates. Look at candidates who have real life experience. One candidate talked about pressure. I have taken care of patients when their life has been on their line. That's pressure. Healing Georgia is what's important. Trust your doctor, not career politicians. I help patients and I'm here to help you. Do not be deceived by political jargon that's being sent to you. Understand this, as Malcolm X says, when politicians come to your community to tell you what to do, that's long gone. We have to stop that. And it's time that we start voting for real people into real positions, because nobody who is up here has been a lieutenant governor or governor. And if these other people are so good, then they would have done something responsible, remarkable for you to make your life better. My career, I've been preparing for this my whole life. This isn't something I just decided to do 10 years ago. Preparing my whole life. My dedication to people is there. That's my record. I've gone against hospitals. I've gone against insurance companies for people that look like you and me. I've worked in the ghettos of America with the National Health Service Corps, fighting for people that look like you and me. That doesn't stop when I become a lieutenant governor. I am here, and I will stand up against somebody in the Democratic, Republican Party, Tea Party, or Libertarian, or a Trumpster, because we need people to start speaking the truth and stop using political jargon or hiding behind retired career politicians. We do not need these people trying to dictate to you what needs to go on in your community. My job is to make sure that I empower you in your community. That's my job. I want you to learn more about Dr. Jason Hayes, candidate for lieutenant governor right here in the great state of Georgia. Text me, Dr. Jason Hayes. Text Dr. Jason Hayes to 90678 and go to www.jasonhayesforga.com. And also look at my podcast, Beyond the Race. I talk about prison industrial complex, police brutality. Even I've been a victim of police misconduct. So when I'm up there fighting, I'm not just fighting on theoretical, I'm fighting on real.
15 seconds.
Vote for Dr. Jason Hayes, Democratic candidate for lieutenant governor, and the only candidate that is bipartisan that will get things done with Republicans. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And once again, I apologize for skipping over you. And that concludes tonight's event. We are scheduled to be back on Thursday for the same office, but just with our Republican candidates. I'm not sure if we're going to be having that one because none of them have responded to the invitation. So I will keep everybody updated through social media. To learn more about the South Fulton Coalition, please visit our website, southfultoncoalition.com, where you can learn more about us, see the upcoming events. You can also review previous town halls, and you can join the South Fulton Coalition. And again, I would like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you, and God bless you. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.